But that morning, my husband woke me up to go to work, and he takes me to the train, and I go to work, and I'm sucking on a fentanyl patch, and I have all the Xanax in my system from the night before, and I fell asleep at my desk at work, and they called me in a room, and I was like, union rep.
Welcome to the show, Jules.
Thank you.
So I met you because your name stuck out. Not Jules, but it was. I all of a sudden I saw like a new person follow my account, and it said "How I Met Your Mother, comma sober," and I'm like, that's an awesome account. And so I was like, I had to follow it. I think I followed you, and I think I messaged you right away, like, awesome name. Let's do each
Yeah.
other's podcast.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So when did it's you and your it's about your podcast is like you and your mom. I haven't got a chance to listen to it yet, only because I'm the kind of person who doesn't like to know too much about their guests before I talk to them, because I like to find out stuff in the moment organically. So I
Sure.
try not to find out too much, because then I feel like I'm leading the witness, and I don't
Yeah.
want to feel like I'm doing that. I've done that once before and I hate it myself for it. So I try not to find out too much. So the podcast is you and your mom doing it together.
Yep. Yep. And it's called How I Met My Mother Sober, basically because I was trying to come up with a name, and I was thinking about, well, first I wanted to do like all in the family, and it seemed like somebody else already had that, so I was just like writing down names of shows, and How I Met Your Mother was on the list, and my husband said, like, you could do How I Met My Mother Sober, and then it's like how you met her and how you met her yourself sober.
That
And I
makes
was
sense. Yeah.
great. And so,
No, I
uh,
like that. And even like the little like design is like New York City and everything like that. Like it's
well,
very true. It's Philly.
It's Philly skyline, but it is kind of like
How
the
how did I not look hard enough? Because I have Philly skyline right here on my wrist.
it's very similar to the show
Like
logo, but
I briefly looked at
sky-
the thumbnail, so maybe I had. So wait, where are you from then, Jules?
Philly.
So I'm from outside of Camden.
Oh, okay. So we're not far.
No, so because that's so funny. I had no idea. Because I had a guy on earlier this week. He was from Philly, and then I've had a few people on that were actually miles from where I grew up. I grew up in a small town called Mount Ephraim. It's right over the Walt Whitman.
Hmm.
And Audubon Park. I could see the Walt Whitman from where I grew up. Really, until I was 6, you could see the entrance to the Walt Whitman where I grew up. So you're a Philly girl.
Hmm. I am.
Okay. That's awesome. I had no idea. See, I told you I don't like to find too much out. I like to be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
And I definitely am. So that means Always Sunny was definitely on your list, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It was.
You're trying to find a way to toy with that name. Like, I gotta make it work. That's funny. So what's your sober date?
So my sober date is September 1st, 2016.
Okay. What was going on at the end of August in 2016?
Mm. Well, I right before I went into rehab, I was like a chronic relapser, but I never really actually had like real sober time. Like I would have a couple days here and there, maybe like a month. And then it was like, oh, I'm sober from Percocet, but I was still taking Xanax and calling myself sober. And so I
I have
had
to
like,
ask, did you call him Jones?
no, I did not.
Because you're from Philly. It's funny because if you're on it's
No.
on the Philly side of the bridge, they don't call Perks Jones. On the Jersey side of the bridge, they call him Jones.
Do they?
Yeah. Every
Yeah.
and I thought it was an us thing. I thought it was like our code kind of thing with like my guys. And then talking to two other people recently from our area, and they're from South Jersey. I met them like on Facebook and TikTok, and they happen to be miles from me, like West Deptford and Brook, like you know what I mean, like right there. They're like, no, we called him Johns too. And then that guy I had on, Charlie, he's like, oh no, we didn't call them Johns. You just called everything Johns. I'm like, yeah, but it's just funny that the Philly side of the bridge didn't call Blues Johns, but the Jersey side does.
Yeah.
I find it so weird. Um, so you were into Xanax and pills.
Yes, I was a pill girl. So it was really opiates. But when I couldn't get opiates, it was the benzos. And so towards the end, I had overdosed probably like in December. And I went to my doctor and I told him, I was like, listen, like, I'm clearly an addict and I overdosed and like I'm scared. And he was like, well, let's put you on a fentanyl patch then. And that'll help control your pain. Cause I legit had a pain condition. And then we'll get rid of the pills. But then it was like he was still giving me pills. So I had this relapse, even though I was still on the fentanyl patches. I had this relapse. I was like doing the right thing with the patches. And then I started sucking on the patches. And then I bought all these Xanax from somebody. And like the night before September 1st, whatever day that is, August 31st, I don't know how many
Yeah.
days
It's
are in.
every other. So yeah, August 31st.
So I was like, I had a baggie filled with Xanax and I was like not sleeping. So, but I was like, every time I woke up, I took like a couple more, right? So I couldn't even tell you how many I took. But that morning, my husband woke me up to go to work and he takes me to the train and I go to work and I'm sucking on a fentanyl patch and I have all the Xanax in my system from the night before. And I fell asleep at my desk at work and they called me in a room and I was like, union rep, not saying a word. I want my union rep. So they got my union rep and put him on the phone and he was like, they got to take you to the clinic. They're going to drug test you. And if you want to save your job, you got to go to rehab. And I was like, well, fuck. Like, okay. And he was also one of us. So I go, they P test me, all that. They're like, we called your husband. He's on his way down. I'm like, motherfucker, this is going to suck. And so the doctor was like so compassionate. He was like, give yourself a chance. Like, I spoke with your husband before you got here on the phone, and he was like, this isn't my wife. Like, this isn't who I married. He's like, give yourself a chance. He was like so kind and compassionate. I'm like, I gotta save my job. Like, I need money to buy drugs. So I'm gonna go to rehab. I'm gonna do what you're saying. But I'm gonna do the deal and come back out and just hide it better, Like that was my plan. And I went in and I was like, how the fuck did this happen? Like, how did I get here? And I'm like, you know how you got here. Like, come on. And so I was like, I'm going to get up every day. I'm going to do I'm not even like in rehab. They don't make you go to like the programs and stuff right away. And when you're still in
You
tox.
yeah. You get at least, like, for me, you had at least 3 days.
Yeah.
Like at my place, you had at least 3 before you had to show up to the IOPs and shit like that. Like it wasn't IOP because it was basically IOP but on premises, right?
Right.
It's like 4 groups a day, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But yeah, you were mandatory to go until you were done detoxing. I mean, honestly though, I started the minute I got there joining groups because I was still kind of high from my flight. I flew from Philly to LA for rehab. So I was still kind of feeling it. I wasn't withdrawing yet when I first got there. It was the afternoon in LA and it was beautiful in LA. And they would do groups outside and I was already smoking a cigarette. So I just kind of sat in and I liked everything I heard. So I just kept going because it was better than laying in bed by myself.
Gotcha.
So I found that, and I saw that, and I didn't want to be. There was the people that never left the rooms, and they just were in their bed the entire time, in the darkness with the shades drawn. I'm like, you're in sunny LA. You're like, try to enjoy it while you can, because we've been living in hell for however long we were in addiction. Like, just try to enjoy
For
that. We
sure.
don't have to be anywhere. We don't have to see anyone. We can just relax.
Yeah. Well,
You
I
know?
got right up and I was like, I'm going to show them. I'm not like these people. So delusional. I started going to classes like right away. I started doing all the things, and I was like trying to manipulate the doctor. I was like, I really think I only need to be here because I was like asking everybody. I'm like, how long did your insurance approve you for? I'm like, fuck, I have good insurance. They're gonna like make me stay for like a month. And the doctor's like, I think we want to keep you for like 3 weeks. I'm like, I really think I could do like a week. Like really trying to manipulate him. And then I find out that my insurance approved me for 21 days. And so I started going to the classes, did all the stuff, and just kind of started hanging out with the kids. There were a lot of young kids, and um, this one kid said to me, he was like, everybody was saying like, "Oh, this is my 16th time in rehab. This is my sixth time." You know, I'm 37. I just turned 37, and there were so many young kids that had been in and out of facilities, and this one kid said to me like, "This is your first time?" He was like, please, please, please get it now. And I was like, huh. And that stuck with me.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, I'm really going to try and do this. So I called my husband and I was like, this is where the patches are. Fucking throw them out, get rid of them, shred them, take them to the pharmacy, do whatever you got to do. Just get rid of them, get them out of the house before I changed my mind, you know?
While you had some clarity and some wits about you before you
Yeah.
could manipulate yourself to manipulate him when you came home and they were too close together. So that I do have that question then. Did
Yeah.
your husband know what you were doing? And you know what I mean? No,
He
you
didn't
were
know.
hiding. He
Okay.
didn't know the extent. He knew that you were prescribed,
Yes.
medicine, obviously, and he knew that it made you probably euphoric because you would see it, but it's just a reaction from your medicine because of the pain.
He would give me one every 3 days because we had them locked up, but I would suck on them and then I wouldn't have anything like a day later. And then I would take the Xanax, and he would ask me, what are you taking? We never had any money, like, and I would lie my ass off and manipulate him, and he was in denial. He didn't want to
He
believe.
loved you. Yeah, he just loved you, and then he just wanted to believe that you were the person that he married.
Oh, he loved the shit out of me.
Yeah.
We only knew each other for 2 years when we got married. Like, it was very quick for us. And within 6 months of being married, I was a drug addict. And like, he stuck with me for like the next 4 or 5 years through that. And then, I got into treatment, and once I had clarity and I started doing all of the classes and stuff like that, I really like committed. I was like all in. Like, I was journaling every day. I was writing letters. I was writing letters to my mom, my sister, my brother, him. Like, I was doing like the special stuff. They were like, if anybody wants to go to this thing that's like off campus, I was doing that. Like, I was doing everything. And then like, I really had like a God block. I was like, I did a lot. I did AA, I did NA, I did all of that like before I even entered rehab. I was in the rooms, and I had such a God block, and I had this individual therapist that was like, I have
Did
a
you grow
book.
up Catholic?
I did. Yeah.
So did I. And that's
Yeah.
why I had a God block too. And
Uh-huh.
everybody that I talked to, out of 80 fucking episodes, everybody I talked to that had problems with saying God, I asked, were you Catholic? Every single one. Yup. Yup.
Makes sense.
Yup. Every single one lost faith in the early 2000s. And I'm one, and I even went to Catholic high school. You know what I mean? I don't know if you ever heard of Paul Six over in Jersey. I went there for a year, and then I was done because I was like, I'd rather be in public school.
I
I
went
don't
to
like this at all.
life every single grade. Yeah.
Damn. Were you a
And
St.
so,
Joe's girl?
what's that?
The only Catholic school I can think of over there is St. Joe's, like the
No,
big one.
BVM and then Archbishop Ryan.
Oh,
And
okay.
so this therapist, he was like, I have a book for you. And actually, it's on my desk. It's Refuge Recovery, right? And it's just says a Buddhist path to recovering from addiction. And I opened it and I was like, whatever, man. Like, okay, Buddhists are weird. Like, I didn't really even know anything about it, but it just said, like, all it requires you to do, it doesn't require you to believe in anything. It's just do the work and trust the process. I was like, all right, cool. I can do that. So I started reading this book, and it just like changed everything. And this book just like I really credit it with like first I had the clarity to say I want to try and do this, right? I didn't want to do it for myself. I didn't want to be sober for myself. I wanted to do it for my husband. I wanted to do it to regain the relationship with my sister, who was my best friend and who had to completely pull away from me. And I just really wanted that relationship back in my life. So I was doing it for other people. And then when I read this book, then I wanted to do it for myself. And this book really just changed everything. And I really credit it with keeping me sober the first year.
Yeah, and it's okay that, you didn't believe in anything right away. You don't have to, my higher power was the rooms at first.
I still
You know what
don't
I,
believe in
you
anything.
know, and I believe in law of attraction. I believe that things are meant to happen how they happen and they'll happen when they happen. You know what I mean? And I believe that I have no control over shit except for what I'm doing, and that's literally it. And that's why I choose to call my higher power Bill Murray, which is easier. I don't, and my wife and I always make a joke instead of saying thank God, we would say, oh, thank Bill. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like a thing. But yeah, it's as long as you just know that shit will work itself out. Like, that's what I always tell myself. It'll work itself out. It'll work itself out.
Yeah.
Um,
My sister is very she believes in the law of attraction and the universe and all of that. And that's still hard for me to get down with, but I really can just trust the process. And as long as I do the work, I'm like, okay, everything will be fine. I just need to take care of me, keep my side of the street clean. And it's all those like, although
little
I'm not
cliches.
in rooms, I still have all the like the AA sayings and NA
Yeah.
sayings still a part of my life and they still make sense.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to my man Jeff Vickers with his book Sober Slogans. That's what I always think of, sober
I-
slogans.
I'll have to look.
Um, yeah, he's been on the show. He's going to be back on again. But yeah, he wrote a book in his first year of sobriety called Sober Slogans,
Okay.
and it's pretty cool. But yeah, he's a funny dude. Anyway, so let me backtrack even more. Then,
Yeah.
did you said your addiction started like 6 months into being married?
Yeah. I hurt my back and I was prescribed tramadol. And back then it was believed to be non-addictive. And
When was this? When is back then for you?
oh, this was 2012.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, 2012. Like the beginning of 2012. And I was like, the fuck it's not, because I'm going through withdrawal, man, and I know I'm addicted to this. And I knew pretty soon, pretty early. And then I was playing the game like, oh, the tramadol is not working. And then it was like, oh, the Vicodin makes me sick. Can you give me the Tylenol with codeine? So I would like have all three. And then it just like built. And then I was sent to pain management. And then I was like given Percocet. And then I was buying it. And then when I didn't have that, I was like getting the Xanax and Ativan from my doctors. And then when I didn't have that anymore, I was buying that. And it just progressed.
Yeah, and it's in the same Was it the same doctor that gave you tramadol that ended up giving you the patches too?
Mm. No,
Okay.
on to like several different pain
Okay.
management.
I was gonna have a real big problem with that. Like, how does that doctor think you need fentanyl when he first started you out with tramadol?
Yeah. No, that was a pain management clinic that actually was that was doing like procedures on my back, like called rhizotomies, where they burn the nerves off in your back. They were doing all this shit. And like they diagnosed me with all these conditions with like, turns out now I know I don't have. Like, explain that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I had this doctor tell me, like, yeah, you were told you had all these conditions. So your body started doing all of these, you started mimicking these things and you believed it. So yeah, of course you were in pain. So
Yeah, you get home and from your doctor telling you some weird name, what's the first thing you do? You Google what it is, you Google what happens from it, you Google how your body's going to react, and then your mind is so powerful, our
it
minds,
is,
and all of a sudden it's like you're limping. It's like,
Well,
You didn't hurt your left foot. No, but it said my left foot's gonna hurt though,
I
and it
couldn't
hurts.
get out of bed, like legitimately could not get out of bed and do things. And then I really couldn't get out of bed without the drugs to do anything.
Oh, I
And
couldn't. I couldn't the last couple of years. I had to like roll over and snort a pill while I was still laying down. Like I would just shove a pill inside of a straw and break it up while I was still laying on my side, just to, and then be like, oh, all right, now I can get out of bed and start my
right,
day. And if I didn't have that, it was, I was living in Lancaster County, Jules. My last 3 years, I was driving from Lancaster County to South Jersey 4 times a
oh
week to pick up, and then I would sit on the Schuylkill, and I'd be throwing up bile into a bag for an hour sitting on the Schuylkill waiting to cross over the bridge to meet my dude over in Williamstown to turn around and go right back over again.
God, so
So
you were throwing up in a bag. I remember very early on when I was still taking the tramadol, I was taking so much of it that it was like making me physically sick. And I wasn't throwing up, but I was spitting up a lot. And my husband started calling me spit bag. And so like that was a little bit like, but that was before both of us even realized what was going on. I didn't
yeah.
even was addicted then.
Doing all that actually though cost me my
This
gallbladder.
episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the episode.
I lost it 3 years later in sobriety and a ton of stomach tissue because of it too, because I started eating away at that.
Yeah.
And it's those little things that we don't think about in those moments, because we're so caught up in what we need to do. So you get into a bad accident of some sort, and then they're like, all right, well, here's all the pills you're going to need. And then once you start, you're up and then you're up and then you're up. And what do you finally, and then finally you get up the fentanyl patches.
Yeah.
But you were still buying on the street though, right?
I wasn't buying on the street as in like going down the way. I don't know if that's that term. Nobody in rehab knew what that meant, going down the way, which just
Yeah.
means like going down to Kensington or whatever.
Yeah.
I never had to go down the way. I always bought off of friends that had scripts that I knew
Mhm.
were from pharmacies.
Yeah.
And if I couldn't get anything from any of them, my mom would buy from friends of hers for me.
So my
And
next question was your mom an addict, because if
yeah,
you're having this kind of podcast together, it makes me feel like she has some shared experiences.
oh yeah, 100%. So my whole life, her and my father, both heroin addicts. And yeah, she's had bouts of sobriety here and there. But in my addiction, she was in her addiction and we were both feeding off of each other. We were both toxic to one another. And I would manipulate the shit out of her for her to give me like whatever she had, like, oh, she would be like, I'm going to give you one Xanax now and then I'll give you one later, because she didn't want to enable me, but at the same time she's like, I know what it's like to be an addict and I can see what you're going through.
Yeah.
So, and I would really play on that, like, oh, I'm having so much anxiety, like,
No, I've heard you mention his sister. Is that your only sibling?
no, I have a brother and a sister. They're both not addicts.
Where do you fall in the line of the three?
I'm oldest.
So am I. I'm oldest of three.
Okay.
So
Same.
is it you, your sister, then your brother's the youngest?
My sister's the youngest.
Oh, okay. So it's okay. And you're all pretty close now.
Now, my brother has kind of separated, and I feel like he's kind of dealing with a lot of his own issues, having to deal with the childhood trauma where he's
Yeah.
separate from us because he just can't
not only does he have middle child syndrome, but he also has two parents that were addicts, an older sister that was an addict, that enabling each other. I mean, it's not surprising,
No.
especially as a normie, it's not surprising that, his mental health would be like, I gotta back away a little bit.
Yeah. And like, I just actually just texted him today, and I never get a response, and I never expect one, but I just still text them to say like, hey, if you want to come to Christmas dinner, we're happy to have you. But I understand if you don't want to make it or you can't make it. I still love you. I hope you're living your best life, and leave it at that.
Because you just celebrated 5 years.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So weird is he was at my 1 year. He came to a meeting. He watched me get a coin, gave me a hug, told me he was so proud of me. And then that was like kind of when he started to pull away. And I don't know what happened there. But yeah.
Yeah, it's not, and it's it's not even worth trying to overthink it, because as addicts we overthink everything.
Yeah.
What you end up overthinking it, and it would probably be wrong because you don't.
I did overthink it, and I just finally had to say, like, he's doing what's best for him, and that's it. Just leave it at that, and
You
that's
just
it.
keep, yeah, you reach your hand out every now and again, like you'll send out a message, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I get that. That's cool though. Now, do you have any kids, or were you able to like stay? Okay,
Yep.
good. I hate to say okay, good, but like with given the
It is.
circumstances, it was pretty good.
My husband and I both never wanted children, and mental illness runs in my family, his family, and everybody in my family is mentally ill, a drug addict, or a criminal. So I've always known I didn't want kids, and I kind of raised my brother and my sister, right? Because my mom was an addict, my dad was an
Yeah.
addict, and so I raised them.
What's the
And
what's the difference in ages? Like, I'm 3 years older than my brother and 9 more than my sister.
so I'm 5 years older than my sister, and I'm 2 years older than my brother.
Okay.
And so my brother is 3 years older than my sister.
Yep. So you're still pretty. You weren't all in the same high school together, but you were still pretty close.
Yeah, close in age.
You weren't. Yeah, you're pretty close in ages. So, did you get in trouble growing up at all? Like as like a rebellious one?
No,
No.
I was perfect child, but I was a perfect child. I did not get in trouble. I got straight A's. I graduated high school with a 4.0. Like when I say to you, literally everyone I know would say I'm the last person on the face of the earth that they ever would think would become an addict. Like, that is real talk. Like, yeah, last person on the face of the earth that people would think would become an addict. And that's
So
why it's so important for me to recover out loud, because I'm like, if it
yeah,
can happen to me, it can happen
it's
to anyone.
exactly. And like, and it's funny because for me, people would say that too, because like I grew up with my parents have been together 40 years.
Wow.
And they're still very happy, and they've never drank alcoholically. I've never heard my dad even yell at my mom, you know what I mean? Like, none of that kind of shit. We went on vacations as a family. My mom must have 30 photo albums filled with pictures of over 25 years of memories, like picturesque, what you would want. My brother is very happy, has a wife and a newborn. My sister is getting married in April and owns a house in Mount Ephraim, and she did that by 22. Like the
Wow.
total opposite. And like for me, I got very good grades, but the problem is, according to my grandma, I was too smart for my own good.
Ah,
And it's almost like I can't get out of my own way kind of deal. And I get that, and it's because I wanted to rebel. I wanted to do things different. I wanted to find out for myself. I don't want anyone to tell me how it's going to play out. I need to find out. And I
yeah.
think that stubbornness, it's that stubbornness is what caused me to like experiment and to try shit. Because yeah, I was a partier though, but I drank hard in high school. I drank hard in middle school. So yeah,
At all.
and you weren't a drinker and you weren't really
Well,
anything.
I would say when I turned 21, I started going out to the bars because I just broke up with a boyfriend, turned 21. And like from 21 to 25, like I would go out and drink all the time, like socially. I never drank alone. And
Yeah.
then I met my husband, like I was done with the bars and I was done with the alcohol. And it was like not hard for me to stop drinking, but there was always addict behavior. Um, like I am a shopaholic. I love food. I was like 200 pounds at one point.
Same.
So
No, I'm just kidding. I'm like 300 pounds now.
addict behavior in my past. Even when I didn't like take pills, like I had a surgery and I was given like 10 Percocet and I didn't take any of them. But when the 10 days were up, I called the doctor and I was like, I'm still in a lot of pain and tried to get another script. Like, for what? I didn't even take any of the ones I had. It's just addict behavior.
Yeah. Now, how fast into your tramadol do you catch a feeling that you like and that you want to keep that feeling?
Right away.
It's that first time that you use tramadol where you're like, wow, this is what I've been missing out on. This is what, like,
I'd say like the first week, I was like, oh, I really like this. This is a problem. This is going to be a
because you
problem.
didn't smoke weed,
I didn't.
right?
I
Yeah, so you never really felt that kind of, lift,
Yeah.
because alcohol is more like a wash. Alcohol is more like a warmth washed over you. And then there's that heaviness that you get from pills. And I feel like it's a different kind of sensation, but cannabis can kind of like soften the blow with giving you an idea of what euphoria can feel like, and to where it's a safe way way to do it.
I would
But
I love weed. I started smoking weed in sobriety. I got a medical. I mean, people have different ideas about weed,
no,
but
we
started
then we
smoking-
both are PA right? Because I had my medical marijuana card in Pennsylvania.
no longer have it though because it became a problem in my marriage because I was doing it every single day because that's what
Really?
happens. I find
See,
something I like and I do it to excess.
and I don't smoke it because I would, well, one, because I lost all that tissue, and so when I cough, that nerve hits the back of my stomach,
Gotcha.
and I don't do things anymore that make my life unmanageable. Like, well, I smoke cigarettes still, and I'm working on that. I say I'm working on that. I say I need to quit, and that's why I can't quit. It's like anybody else is a drug addict. Whenever they say they need to quit, it's not usually going to work. Whenever I subconsciously say I want to quit smoking, then I'll be able to stop right away on the dime. But
Wow.
until I say want, I'm not really going to want it.
Gotcha.
As much as I say need, it's always because of something else, like a health or money situation. It's not, I still enjoy cigarettes way too much to quit them. But I don't smoke because, like, smoke weed, the caffeine, but also I wanted to change my relationship. I didn't want to escape right away. I didn't, I always escaped with, chugging, with snorting, you know what I mean? It was an instantaneous I was looking for always.
Right.
So since when you smoke and you inhale, you do feel it pretty quickly. And I didn't want to be able to escape quickly anymore. I wanted to be able to sit in the shit, be uncomfortable, be okay with being uncomfortable. And so I use like the RSO capsules.
Okay.
So I'll dose with them when I take my blood pressure medicine. And then like 1 to 3 hours later, they'll start working their way through my system. I'm less anxious, I'm less depressed, and it does its job as a medicine, and it's not me escaping as a high.
There you go.
So that's the difference of how I can change my relationship with it and it not affect, me wanting to get drunk or me wanting to get pills, and by like opiates pills,
Right.
because, I ran out of RSO like a week ago, and it's Christmas time, so we're broke. So I haven't had any medicine. The only thing it really affects is my sleep because I've had sleep problems since I was 8, and that
Okay.
helps me sleep at night. I just double up at night, it helps me sleep. So, but besides that, like, I'm not moody. I'm not like having stomach cramps. I don't have the withdrawals that you have from, me was Roxy's. That was my thing, like
Yeah.
the 30s, the blues.
Yeah.
So what?
That's what I overdosed on.
Really?
A handful of 30s and I was taking Ativan all day long, just like the little 1 milligrams. Just, I couldn't
Yeah.
even tell you how many I took. And then I went and I met my dude and I got like 10 30s and I think I took like 3 and it was just like boom, lights out. So
And it
yeah,
was mixed with all of the benzo, like from,
that I was
yeah.
taking all day long. And like
Yeah,
I didn't know how much I had taken, like a dummy. And yeah, that
well,
was
you
bad.
forget. That's the
Yeah.
problem with, you forget how much you've taken. You forget that you even dosed.
Mhm.
Sometimes you take Xanax, you're like, I didn't take any Xanax yet. And then you take more
Can't
Xanax.
remember shit.
So yeah, in the blackouts, only reason I got into Xannies it's because I thought I missed out on Quaaludes. I was like, I missed out on Quaaludes, but if I mix those two, it'll probably feel the same. Fucking idiot. Um, so what was it that you were like, I'm gonna try to use cannabis, and how far into? Because it didn't come to PA until 2000 January. Well, no, it was January 2018. That's when medical marijuana started. Because I was one of the first patients in Pennsylvania.
Started going to the gym, right? Right. Because I had gained like 30 pounds in sobriety, eating Jolly Ranchers nonstop. And those were my cigarettes because I don't smoke and I don't drink coffee. And that started in rehab. And then I was buying the king size bags at home. And I was like an idiot. I didn't think I was going to gain any weight. And then I noticed like none of my clothes were fitting. And so then I started working out. And I was like going to the gym like addictively. And I was always nursing like little injuries here and there. And my back was still giving me trouble. And so I was like, all right, let me try the medical marijuana. And my husband and I talked about it. And like he was like, all right, let's try it. Okay. So I tried it. And then it just became like I was like smoking after 7 o'clock every night when I got home from the gym, right? Then I was smoking before the gym. Then I was smoking anytime I was at home. I like had the vape on me and I was vaping all the fucking time. And it just became a problem.
Speaking of problems, this is something different. But before I forget, there was a word that stuck to my attention when I was reading your bio on your podcast. Codependent.
Mm-hmm.
Is that for you or your mom?
I would say my mom is more codependent, but I'm codependent too because I raised my brother and my sister, like I said, and I would say I even raised my mom too. Like, so it was always like they would call me and it's like, okay, what do you need? Like, I'll fix it. I'll take care of it. Like, whatever it was. So whatever they needed, I was always
But your mom is sober now?
she's sober. We're both sober. Yeah, it's funny. We both got sober within a month of one another.
Like when, because you went September 1st, did she go after you?
She went, well, she had a DUI. I had a DUI a month apart from her, right? We both had a DUI 1 month apart from one another. And then she was in restraints in the hospital and it was really bad. And then after that, she was like, she said that she had said to herself, like, God, if I get out of these restraints, I swear to God, I will never touch a drug again. And she got out of the hospital and she got sober. And that was it for her. And then I went into rehab a month later.
I guess that DUI explains why your husband was dropping you off at the train station in the morning you had
Yeah.
work.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And can I ask about your dad?
My dad overdosed and passed away when I was 12.
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
So that would be the reason why you mostly had to step up when you were 12, because you had a
he was
7-year-old.
He was a drug addict my whole life, and my mom didn't become really bad until my mom was a young mom, so she had all three of us by the time she was 25, which is fucking crazy to me. But
It was
was
different in
still,
the 80s, you know that.
I know. She was, she was young. She was still kind of like partying with her friends, going out, going to the bar, stuff like that. And she didn't really get bad. Like she dabbled, but she didn't get bad until, I don't know, I want to say maybe I was like 8 or 9. But before that, I was still like tasked with so many responsibilities, like with cleaning the house and like
Like a
making,
little Matilda,
like,
taking care of yourself, getting yourself to school.
yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yes.
Making,
And
yeah.
my dad, it's just my mom. She was a single mom. My dad wasn't around. And then my mom got into a relationship with a man who was institutionalized his whole life, in and out of jails. And so he ran our house like a fucking penitentiary. And it was like, that was crazy. And he was super abusive, and like physically abusive, emotionally, verbally, like all the ways.
And then you had to feel like you had to protect your brother.
I had to protect my brother and my sister. Yes. He never laid his hands on me. I don't know why. Whenever he would try to get to me by hurting them. And so I would, yes, protect them.
That
So
makes sense.
yeah, always kind of protecting them. And, yeah.
How
So,
long did that go on for?
mm,
That's a
it was,
hard thing for a kid, you know what I mean? Like you're not even a teenager and you're trying to like you shouldn't have to like worry about protecting your brothers and sisters when you're still like in 7th grade. You know what I mean? And like a little kid, that's not
yeah,
something that you should have to worry about,
that on until at least I was starting college, like out of high school. So it went on for a while.
Well, and then to your mom's credit, you know, like you said, she was codependent and she was an addict. So this guy at least is showing her the love sometimes, enough to keep her feeling like she can't go anywhere else.
Well, it was more like I'm an addict and I need this guy to pay the bills. But she also was 100% in love with him, codependent, and relied on him, addicted to him. We talk about being addicted to a person on the podcast, and she totally was addicted to him.
That I'm so glad, you know, and my regular listeners can tune out if they want to this because they heard me say it a million times, but I want you to hear it. You know, because I run a meeting center, my wife, and we do mental health meetings here, addiction, AA, NA, whatever, a bunch of different things. One of the things we were doing for a little while was families for addicts. You know, families, loved ones that have addicts and still an active addiction. And it was different from Al-Anon because Al-Anon, you're supporting each other as people who have found, and then with ours, you were coming and talking to like myself or like my sponsor or my wife and other people that are addicts to get our perspective from the recovery point of view to give them some insight.
Oh, I like that.
And to speak to what you just said, you know, a woman was very confused about not understanding her son's drug use for so long because she wasn't a drug addict. And all I had to do was just bring up a toxic boyfriend in her life, describe that toxic boyfriend, and asked her how long she stayed in for it. And she totally was able to understand and sympathize with her son for the first time in a very long time because she realized like, oh, I didn't realize you considered a relationship. And I'm like, well, we don't in the moment. We don't know what it is. And then until you get some clarity and you look back and you're like, no, that was legitimately a love. That was a relationship. That I had to cut ties. I had to write a breakup letter. I had, you know, all the whole nine. You know,
Yeah.
I even had a breakup song. You know, I felt like I just had to have some kind of big separation from it, or else it would like, you know, it's like whisper in my ear of all the good times
Uh-huh.
because like a toxic relationship there are good times. That's why you stick around for so long, is because you only think of the good times.
Right. And you
And
romanticize them.
yep, and it's the same with when you go into a relapse, is you start thinking about the good times and you don't think about the times that you were keeled over, you know, in a fetal position just waking up, or the restless leg syndrome, or the going to the bathroom. Oh,
All that.
it's so funny that it was one of the first things like I put like on my 10th step, like 2 weeks into rehab, was like I was so grateful to be able to go to the bathroom again, just like regular,
Uh-huh.
and it not like feel like I might die today. Like it was the
Yeah.
little things that you forget about of just
Yeah.
quality of life, and you think you need these drugs because your life is shit, but it's like no, it's the drugs that are making your life shit. Because obviously your back didn't just magically heal, did it?
No.
Did you get crazy surgeries to magically heal your back, or it was just you started exercising, you started
Well,
eating better?
I think really what it was that I really kind of found out what I actually did have going on that was real, what was not real
Wait,
that
what?
the doctor told me that I did have, and
Wait,
then
hold on. I lost you for a quick second.
okay.
I was what you were. I was saying about the like your back. You didn't magically heal, did it?
No, no. What happened was I found out what was legitimately going on in my back and what was not. What was not real, what diagnoses were not real, and what diagnoses were. And I found out that I have fibromyalgia, and all the other shit that they told me I had, I did not. I don't have anything wrong with my back. My back is structurally fine. I was told I had the back of an 80-year-old. I do not.
They just
Okay.
wanted to be able to give you pills.
Yes, exactly. And so they did all those crazy things. I had all these injections, all these things done to my back, and none of that was necessary. So once I found out what was actually going on with my body and what was not actually going on with my body, then my brain was able to say, okay, all right, cool. And so just like before, when my brain believed all the things that were going on, once I found out what was actually going on, your mind is very powerful. And then all of those symptoms started to resolve. And
Look at
so,
that.
yeah. So, I mean, I have bad days and I am on medication for my fibromyalgia, but I'm not on all those other things for like an 80-year-old chronic back pain type
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, I
So,
don't. Yeah, you don't need Ativan for back pain.
well, no. And the anxiety that I was dealing with, I do have crippling anxiety, but I deal with that with an anti-anxiety medication that is not a benzo, and um I meditate
Yeah,
and I
that meditation's really like isn't has been important more. It's been important more for my wife than me in her recovery. I'm still trying to get better at meditating. It's been an ongoing process of trying to get better at it, trying to silence my mind for it. I remember the first few weeks, first few months, my first and when I was in rehab and in sober living and IOP meetings and all that. And whenever they told us we had to meditate, I was like so outright against it. Like so outright against. I remember the one time I talked the case manager at IOP into letting me watch the NHL All-Star game instead of doing an hour-long meditation because I said that's only going to hurt my mental health to try to meditate for an hour. So how about I sit and quietly watch this instead? And and he was like, I'm not even gonna argue with you anymore. Just do whatever you want.
yeah,
Like okay, because he knew I was just so dead set against it. And it wasn't until really I met my wife that and you say you guys. I kind of chuckled earlier on when you said you guys met kind of fast because I met her a year into being sober. And then, but I said I wouldn't get serious until like I get back from my 1 year anniversary because I wanted at least 1 year before I got into a relationship. So when I
mhm.
came back, we had known each other for like 3 weeks, and then I just proposed.
Oh,
But we couldn't get married until her divorce went through, and then that went through. We got married literally like we picked up her divorce papers, and then we walked across the street and we got our marriage license.
wow. Okay.
I know all about like, when you know though, that's the difference.
I really did. I knew within the first week. So yeah.
And it's a really kind of like I don't even it's one of those things that I can't describe to somebody that hasn't like fell quickly before because it is indescribable. It is like one of those like because nobody would ever believe you kind of feelings of like she wasn't there and then she's the only one that's been there since. I don't know. It's just
I was a person that did not believe in when you know, you know. I didn't believe in that. I was like, okay, that's bullshit. You don't know each other well enough. And like, I just knew right away. And
yep.
also had to cut ties from a toxic relationship. I had broken up with a boyfriend, but I was still like going out and drinking and then ending up at his house and sleeping with him, but still living somewhere else. And then I met my husband, Jack. And the next day, I completely cut all ties with that ex-boyfriend, which was something I could not. It took me more times to leave him than it did for me to get sober. Like it was harder for me to leave that relationship than it was for me to get sober, which is crazy.
So that's what I see the codependency
I think
and
I lost you.
toxic. Okay, but yeah, talking about codependency, you
Yeah.
know what I mean. Talk about codependency right there.
Yeah, it took me
So
more times to to leave that relationship than it did to get sober. And the only time I left that relationship was when I met my husband, because I was like, this I want to pursue, and this is going to fuck it up. So done with that. And I'm going to pursue this.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
then, so what happened? What happened like that? You, you like
I lost
go
you again.
to the doctors to get a prescription.
Sorry, I lost you
Yeah, I
again.
know. I don't know if it's raining down by you too.
It is.
No, I don't know if yeah, it might. Is it raining by you too?
It is. It is.
What?
It is
Yeah,
rain.
yeah. Yeah, I'm up in Bloomsburg,
Oh,
so that's I'm like 2 hours away from Philly, but so we get all the rain too. But anyway,
what happened?
so did you get into a car accident?
No, it's the dumbest thing ever. I bent down to pick up a dog bone and I got stuck and I threw my back out. And then I was like limping around for like a week because I was not a person that goes to the doctors. And then finally my husband was like, "Would you please just go to the doctors?" So I did. I went to a chiropractor and like did chiropractic care like 3 times a week, but it was like not helping. And then I went to an orthopedist that gave me tramadol, and then it was like I just like kept going back for more and more and more, and then they sent me to pain management, and then it was like off to the races.
Yeah, because by then they weren't going to prescribe you oxy from your like PCP. You
No,
have
no.
to go to pain management because the doctor shopping had like pretty much put a halt on all that by then.
Yes.
So it would make sense that they were trying to get you just so your personal doctor was like, oh, here's some low dose tramadol, you should be fine. It's not it's not an opiate, so you'll be okay. And then yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It's something that takes us away from something. And even if it's you're over drinking coffee, if it's taking you away and making your life unmanageable, it might be a problem.
Yes. Yep.
So, but I know you're not feeling well. I know the weather sucks, but thank you for at least sitting down for a little bit. I know you had a long week and getting to know you. And by the way, if I would have heard your accent right when we started talking a little more, because
Oh, I
the
know. I'm
the
so
yeah
it
the,
now.
the yeah, like every time I hear yeah, like I didn't know I had an accent until I lived in Massachusetts. Like, 'cause I grew up in South Jersey, you know what I mean, that area, and then I moved to Mass when I was 19, and everyone's like, "You have an accent." I'm like, "The fuck you talking about? You have an accent. You don't
Well,
even say you're ours."
in rehab, I went to rehab in Lancaster. And so like people came from all over, like
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, like everywhere. And they would be like, say soda. Cause they would say that I said soda. Like, I don't know. They made
Say water.
yeah, say
That was
half,
the
like I don't know,
say
like
house. Yeah.
long O's.
Yeah, it was home. And they would
Yeah.
say home. I'm like, what? Like, and say this and say, yeah, I know I got that too. Cause I probably, would you go to White Deer Run?
No, I went to retreat.
Okay. White Deer Run's in Ephrata. That's what I'm thinking of, I think. Which is right next to Lancaster. It's
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
Lancaster County. 'Cause I used to go to meetings down there. When I came back from rehab, I was living in Hershey, and then I would drive down to Ephrata about an hour to go to a meeting
Oh
three
wow.
times a week. Not because I couldn't find a closer meeting. It was more or less penance, honestly, because I was driving so much to get high for so long that I felt like I should drive for sobriety too. So
Wow.
I found that meeting and I would do that like 2, 3 times a week. I met some cool people, so I just kept going back, until it didn't serve me anymore and then I moved. But yeah, that's something that I would it was like a long drive through Lancaster, through the back roads. Didn't have radio at some point for a little bit to get down there. But so I met some people in that area, and I went to some meetings in Lancaster City sometimes.
We've been all
Um,
over.
yeah, but I got sober in LA. Like I went all the way out there to get sober, and then I came back.
Yeah, when you say it.
What?
Now I hear it when you say yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
can
I
hear
can't.
the accent.
It's almost like we say it like YEA. It's like we leave the H off. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's
No,
just
it does.
or YA. I don't know, but yeah.
No, I'm so aware of it now.
Yep. Home and phone. Phone was another one too. And I also learned that I didn't say my L's all the way. So I was telling a story once and I was like, yeah, so I had to run over railroad tracks. And they're like, the what? I'm like, railroad tracks. They're like, railroad, JD? I'm like, yeah, railroad. They're like, you're not saying your L. I'm like,
And when
what?
I say sober, I'm like sober. Like I hear it in my
Sober. Yeah. Yep.
like
And yeah. Nick Kroll does a very funny thing making fun of our accent when he had the Nick Kroll show where he had like this pawn shop in Philly, this Philly pawn shop, and it's hilarious. It was on the Comedy
honestly.
Central. It was on Comedy Central. It's all over YouTube. Just type in Nick Kroll pawn shop. It's so
Okay.
funny how they make fun of our accent. His
Okay.
cousin's like from Maryland, so they incorporate that accent, and then Pittsburgh. It's so fucking funny.
I'm gonna look it up.
Um, yeah, definitely check it out. But thank you so much for taking time to sit down and
Thank
talk
you for
and
on.
it's awesome getting to know you and awesome to find out another Philly girl and another Philly person because you're the first Philly girl that I've talked to actually. I've had a
Oh,
Philly guy, a couple of Jersey guys, a bunch of Jersey girls,
well,
but
my addict ego loves being the first. So
yep, you nailed it. Definitely the first Philly girl. Not there was Philly Jersey girls, but not Philly girls yet. So you got that one.
love
So
that.
unless I find somebody else in the meantime and I bump you back and I put hers at no, I'm kidding. But have a great weekend, Jules, and I'll talk
You
to you soon.
all right? Sounds good.
All right, bye.
Bye. Thank you.